Hello, my name is Selena, and today I'll be giving a presentation about the use of tenses and idioms in the language environment. And so a quick overview about what we're going to talk about. So at first, I'll introduce myself a bit, kind of give you a bit of information about me. And then after we'll go into the tenses, and so I'll explain a bit the past tense, the future tense, and as well as the past, present, and future. Then after the tenses, we'll go into like the idioms. And so I'll explain a bit the idioms. I'll give a couple examples. And then towards the end, I will thank you. And then if you guys have questions, you can leave in the comments. So a brief introduction about me. As you know, my name is Selena. I'm 24 years old. I'm born in Canada and I've lived here all my life, so I'm a Canadian citizen. I've traveled a bit around the world, but mostly spend my time here in Canada. I live specifically in Quebec. And so in Quebec, the languages are English and French, and so I speak a bit of both. But my grandparents were born in Italy, and so I do have some knowledge in terms of like speaking and understanding in Italian. And so overall, the three languages that I can speak, write, and understand is English, French, and Italian. In terms of my education, my latest degree is a bachelor degree in psychology. And so for here, the university degrees are around 4 years. And so we also have before university like a college degree, but that's only specific here in Quebec, so I won't even go into it because outside of Quebec, college degrees don't even exist. And so in terms of like my career, my passion, I love working with children and I also love still psychology. And so for me, combining my passion for children and my passion for psychology, I really enjoy working with kids with autism. I have a couple volunteer experiences as well as work experience working with kids with autism. I find it really fulfilling and I have a deep passion to understand their needs and to be able to help them. So now we're gonna go into the tenses. So the objective of like, like what are tenses? Why should we learn tenses? Like, why do I need to learn tenses? And so tenses, what we're gonna go over, we're gonna understand the basic concept of the three tenses. And so in the English language, there's three major tenses, the past, present, and future. So we're gonna understand the basic concept of them, recognize and be able to use them inappropriately. So, for example, when to use the different tenses, and also practice forming sentences in each tense. And so I know this is not as like interactive, so I can't ask you a question and hear back, but I will post on one of the slides a couple of examples of common verb tenses that we use in the English language. And so you on your free time, you can practice and use these kind of as like a guideline, as a template, and you can create your own sentences as leisure on like your free time. So what are tenses? So tenses refers to when the action in a sentence takes place. So they indicate whether an action is happening now, whether the action has happened in the past, or whether that action will happen in the future. And so these tenses, these verb tenses, can also help us understand the duration, so how long, as well as the completion of the action, so when the action is done. And so, as we discussed, there's the three tenses. There is the past, there is the present, so for example, present day, and then there is the future. So, looking into the present tense describes actions happening now or regularly, as well as just general truths, like general statements that are happening in real time. And so, the structure of most present tense sentences is that first you'll start with the subject. And so, the subject can be things like I, you, she, him, we, they. So we, if you want to refer to, let's say, for example, me and like my friends, they, if you want to refer to like another group. Um, and so first you'll start with like the subject, and then you'll add the verb. And so the verb is in the base form. And so in a future slide, I'll kind of post a bit of example of common verbs that we use in the English language. And then you'll follow it with an object or a complement. And so an object can be things like an apple, a teddy bear, or they could also be things like people or animals. When we talk about objects in a sentence, we're talking about the things that the actions happen to. So for example, if I say, I ate an apple, The apple is the object because that's what I ate. As for the complements, so in English, we use words to often describe actions or states. And if I'm saying a sentence like, I am happy, or so like the happy tells us how I feel, but sometimes you want more information to complete the sentence, to complete the meaning of the action or the state. And so that's where the complement comes in. So the complement is kind of like a buddy that helps complete the meaning of the word. So it can come after certain verbs or adjectives, and it gives us more information about the action or state in that sentence. So, for example, in the sentence, she painted the wall is the complement because it tells us what she painted. So it's kind of enriching our sentence a bit more, giving us more detail. We could just say she painted, but she painted what? So that would be the complement. She painted the wall, she painted the table, she painted a picture. It's describing, it's giving a bit more information to the sentence. So complements are like the puzzle piece that makes our sentences complete by giving us more details about the actions or state. So to recap the structure for the present tense, you're going to start with the subject, then you're going to add your verb, and then you're going to add your object or complement. And so the time markers for present tense is when you want to refer to something that's happening now. If you want to refer to something that's currently happening, for example, if someone is currently bleeding out, that's happening right now here in this moment. Or if you want to refer to something that's always happening, because if it's always happening, it's always relevant in the present tense. If I'm always doing it, I'm doing it now, and I will always be doing it in the present. So some examples for this can be like, I play tennis. So for here, I is the subject, play is the verb, and tennis would be like the complement. So I can just say like, I play. But again, adding that complement will give you more details about the sentence, more information, will give you more details about the sentence. So like, I play tennis, I play basketball, I play sports, I play with friends. It's giving more details. Or another example, she reads books. So she again would be the subject, reads would be the verb, and then books would be like the object. And so she reads books, she reads newspapers. And so these are like the objects. These are the things in which she is reading. So again, it's giving more information to the sentence to make it more full, make it more detailed, to give the audience an idea of like what are you reading? What are you playing? So as for the past tense describes actions that have already happened. So anything that has happened in the future. So for example, if we skip to the time markers, things that happened yesterday, that happened last week, that happened a long time ago. It doesn't matter if it was 1 minute ago or if it was 10 years ago. It's stuff that happened in the past tense. So the structure is the subject. So again, I, you, she, he, we, they, plus the verb. And so for the past tense, the verb will be past form. And again, in a couple slides, I'll kind of show you some common verbs that are either the base form or the past form, and you'll be able to kind of fill in your own sentences. Um, so after the verb, you'll also add the object and complement, and this is the same idea. Objects such as, table, chair, wall, and then complements just to add, um, for example, she played tennis, those types of things. So, example, to use the same sentences, but in the past tense, I played tennis. So again, I is the subject, played is the verb in past form, and then tennis is still the complement. Or another example, she read a book. So in these sentences, it doesn't give, she read a book 2 weeks ago, but even just changing that verb to the past form, you understand that it's not something that happened right now, it's something that happened in the past. And if you want to enrich your sentence a bit more, you could even say, she read a book a month ago, or she read a book yesterday. That would obviously give more compliments. It would give more details to the sentence, but just using that proper verb tense, you understand that she read a book, it's something that happened in the past. And so now future tense. The future tense describes an action that will happen in the future. So again, even if it will happen 1 minute from now, or if it'll happen 10 years from now, it's still all the future. So for this one, the structure is the subject, again, I, you, she, he, we, they. And then oftentimes you'll insert words such as will or shall, and then again followed by the verb, which is in base form, and then the object and complement. And so time markers when you'll use the future tense is when you want to refer to things that will happen tomorrow, if you want to describe things that will happen next week, in 2 weeks from now, even if you want to describe something that will happen soon. So for example, even if I want to describe something that will happen in 5 minutes, it's very soon, it's 5 minutes, it's not 10 years away, but at the same time, it's not the present, it's in the future. It's going to happen in 5 minutes from now. Even if it's gonna happen in 1 minute, that's still the future because it didn't happen yet. So every time you're talking about the future, you're talking about something that didn't happen yet. That will happen whether in a second, in a minute, in days, weeks, months, years, a lifetime. It's always something that hasn't happened yet, but that will happen in the future. And so examples using the same examples, but now switching to future tense. So for example, you can say, I will play tennis, or she will read a book. And so again, these examples are pretty simple. We don't know when she will play tennis or when she will read a book, but using that will, you understand that like in the future she will play tennis, in the future she will read a book. And again, if you want to be more descriptive, if you want to give more details, you can say, I will play tennis tomorrow, or she will read a book next week. And so again, you can keep it simple, just using the proper structure. You'll understand that it's future tense. But if you want to add more details to give the audience or the other person more clarity, more information, when you will play tennis, when you will read a book, um, you can always like add those details in. And so here is the slide that I was referring to. So the green is all the verbs that are in base form. And so base form is used for the present and the future. And all the verbs in red are for the past form. And so the past form is used for the future. And so this is not like the only verbs that we use in the English language, but it gives you an example of common verbs, sorry, that you will use. So for example, like if you want to talk about drinking, eating, writing, different type of play verbs, different type of action words, like for example sitting, running, you'll find a lot of the common one here. And even if you Google if you do like a Google search, there's plenty of like more detailed list that gives you even more lists of verbs, and they often divide it between the base form and the past form. So you'll be able to kind of create your own sentences and fill in the gaps. So for example, if I want to create a new sentence and I want to talk about the present, so I'm using the base form, I can say she, which would be the subject, shut, which would be the verb, and then window, and window is the complement. So she shut the window. That's happening in the present. And it's giving you an idea that like right now, I shut the window, I closed the window. If I want to give an example for like the past, so the past is using the past form, which is the ones in red. So for example, if I want to say um, on presenter mode, these like shrink down, so I don't really see them that well. But for example, tore. So tore is the past form of the verb. So I can say she tore the paper. So again, this is something that's happening in the past. The past. So she would be the subject, but you can use any subject. I tore the paper. You tore the paper. We tore the paper. And so again, let's say we would be the subject. Tore is the past form, the verb in past form, and then paper would be the object. So you can say she tore, but she tore what? So again, that's when you're using your object, your complement to enrich your sentence. So she tore the paper. She tore her notes for class. She tore a muscle in her body. So again, you're giving details as to what she tore. And so again, you can kind of like use this as a guideline or use this as practice in terms of using, let's say, your subjects, that I, you, she, we, he, they, using your forms, whether the base form or the past form, and then using the objects or complements, and you can kind of make a handful of sentences that would be able to that you would be able to use in conversations to express yourself and kind of get the message across. Like this is kind of like the skeleton of like the English grammar, like the bones of it. And so once you are able to kind of formulate a couple of these sentences, you can go a long way in terms of like having a long conversation, being able to converse with people back and forth because most times at the base, these are the sentences we use, these are the structures we use. And so um, I included this slide so you can kind of get some practice at home. And again, online, they also have even more longer lists of even more verbs. Sometimes there's even lists of like not like verbs that are not common. And so sometimes you might be you want to talk about a specific situation, but it's not a conversation that you have often. And so you're not necessarily sure how to convert these verbs, how you can use them in the sentence. And so online, there's a lot of great websites in which you could even, let's say, type the verb and it would give you different examples of how you can use it, when you can use it. And there's a lot of examples too to help put things into context. So that was tenses, a brief summary, a recap about tenses. And so now we're going to talk about idioms, which I think is really unique to, I mean, I know different languages have different idioms, but the interesting part is that these idioms cannot necessarily be translated into different languages. And so an idiom that is used in English can't word for word be translated into, for example, Spanish. Oftentimes, these are things that are really unique to English, whereas let's say, for example, in Spanish, they'll have their own idioms that if you translate them word for word in English, it won't make sense at all. So I think it's really cool to like go into idioms and I will provide a couple examples too. So if you want to like practice using them like in your everyday language, that will be accessible to you. So what are idioms? So idioms are phrases that have a meaning that is very different from its individual parts. And so what I mean by this is that when we're speaking in English, usually the words mean what they mean. So if I say she read a book or she reads a book, I really mean that this girl is reading a book. A book, the words, the story, the book will not change. I don't mean something different. I really mean that she's reading the book. If I say that I am eating a hamburger for supper, I really mean that for supper I'm eating a hamburger. There's no hidden meaning in it. There's no expressions. It really is what it is. For idioms, it's the complete opposite. And so oftentimes we will use words but we won't mean to use that word. So I can say hamburger, but I won't be referring to the actual hamburger. And so when I give you a couple examples, you'll kind of see how we use a lot of words that we don't actually mean those words, or we don't actually mean a cat, or we don't actually mean the color blue to describe how we feel, but it's a figure of speech. And so most sentences we use a literal meaning, meaning that the word means what it means. However, with idioms, we use a figurative meaning, meaning that we might say a word, but it's a figure of speech. We're only using it to express something different. And so you cannot translate the sentence word for word. So, for example, and I'll explain this later on, an example is it's raining cats and dogs. So we don't mean that it's literally raining cats and dogs like from the sky, but we're using it as a figure of speech. And so the figure of speech will go into what they all mean. But yeah, that's what idioms are, and they're often used to exaggerate the feelings or emotions or actions. So when you want to express something, instead of saying it's really raining, you can say like it's raining cats and dogs, which we use it as a way to exaggerate. So it's raining like I've never seen before. Like I can't even see outside my window. It's raining so hard. I can't even see right in front of me. Like it's really, really raining. But if you're having a conversation, instead of saying, it's really, 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 really raining, you would just say it's raining cats and dogs. And that would mean it's raining really, 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 really hard. But instead of saying all that, we just say the expression, oh, it's raining cats and dogs. So again, it really exaggerates the feelings, it exaggerates the emotions, it exaggerates the actions. If we want to say that, we threw something, sometimes we use an idiom. And instead of saying, we threw the ball and it went like super duper fast, super duper far, we would just, use an idiom and the person would understand like, okay, the ball went flying across. You didn't just throw it and went flying across. So sometimes we use an idiom and within a couple words, we're able to explain a lot. We're able to convey a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions. And so instead of saying something in 20 words, we can just use the idiom that might be 3, 4 words, but it holds a lot of value. It holds a lot of meaning. Like when you hear it, it says a lot of more, it says a lot of words compared to like what the actual, it might be 3 words, but in reality, it can explain like 20 words. So when we go into examples, like it will make a lot more sense. So why do we use them? As I said, we often use them to exaggerate the feelings or emotions or actions. And it's also just a fun addition to language. It's a different way to express yourself. And so when you're in a more formal setting, for example, if you're giving a presentation, if you're, at the office, you're at work, you're dealing with different business partners, we wouldn't necessarily use idioms because while idioms is still a way that we communicate, it's a bit more of a casual speaking. It's something that you would use more so with friends, with family, at let's say, for example, a party, or even if you're just, you're watching a sports game, it's something more casual. So idioms you would use, it's a fun addition to language, but we would more so save it for casual, casual occasions in which you're with friends, you're with family, even if you're with coworkers, but you're just having a private conversation, you can use idioms. But for example, if you're speaking about your boss about, a sensitive issue or an issue you're having at work, not necessarily the most appropriate time to use idioms. It's more so as a sign of respect in terms of the type of language you're going to be using with different people. And so again, idioms is also a way to express yourself in a special way. So like I said, instead of me saying that it's really, 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 really raining, I would just use the idiom, it's raining cats and dogs, and I'm expressing myself without having to say the really, 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 really. And oftentimes, idioms are also used as a way to connect with people. And so sometimes, especially now with different platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, sometimes idioms are created online. And so it's not an idiom that has existed for years and years, but, something might be trending or there's an expression that, people are using online, and then more people will know what that is. And when you use it, sometimes, I speak with my sisters and they're on TikTok a lot and they say certain idioms that I won't necessarily know, or sometimes they'll use certain idioms that I will recognize from TikTok. And so it's a kind of a way to like, oh, you're referring to TikTok when people say this expression, when they say this idiom. So it's also a unique way to like connect with others. Um, and even when you hear new idioms, it's a new way to like, oh, like what do you mean by that? It's like at first it sounds kind of funny, like, oh, like cats and dogs, like it's raining animals, but then, it's a fun way to also like connect with people and to also expand your vocabulary and expand the words you use, the expressions you use, and then it gives you yourself a new way to like express yourself and a new way to like converse with people. Sorry. And so common idioms in everyday language. So I broke them down, the idioms, into different themes. Um, and so, for example, I broke this one down into everyday language. So these are idioms that you can use in most of your conversation. It doesn't have to be a specific situation, but these are just common ones. Okay, so I just now we're going to go into different examples of idioms, and so I divided them into different categories to help explain them, but to also help refer them if you want to refer to something about everyday language. Later on, we'll go into idioms related to color, related to animals. And so right now we're going to talk about everyday language. So these are idioms that you can use. Um, it's not tied to a specific event, a specific occasion. You can use this in any occasion, any situation that you find yourself. You'll see like as we go through them, you'll see that you can relate or you can even start to find instances in which you're like, oh, I can say this here, I can use this here, or okay, I know when to use this. Oh yes, I feel like this right now. So the first example, the idiom hit the hay. So what this means is to go to bed. Like you want to go to bed, you're often like very tired. And so yes, of course you can tell someone, let's say if you're having friends over or you're hanging out with your family members and then you said, you know what, like I'm gonna go to bed. But sometimes again, if you want to express yourself in a fun way, express yourself in a different way, you can just say like, oh, like I'm going to hit the hay, meaning like I'm going to bed. I'm going to bed. And so this one's pretty like straightforward. It's as if, like a horse is going to like, to the hay and the horse is going to sleep, but we often use it towards ourselves like, oh, I'm going to hit the hay, like, my day is done. I'm going to bed. See you tomorrow. So you can just say this, for example, very, using like the subject, you can say like, oh, like I'm going to hit the hay. That's all you need to say. And it just means like I'm going to bed. So another example of an idiom is piece of cake. So here I'm talking about the top right corner. So piece of cake means something is very easy, almost too easy. So for example, if you're a student, you just did an exam, you just did a test, and the test was very easy. You were super prepared. You went there, you didn't have to think twice about anything. You knew all the answers, you were able to circle all the answers, and you're like, you finished the exam and your friend's like, oh, how was it? You can say like, it was very easy. But again, to express yourself in a unique way, you can say like it was a piece of cake. And so as you sort of see, like um when we use the idioms, we don't use them as literal. So I don't mean that like I wrote the exam and I was given a piece of cake. Like that would be more literal. But again, we're using figurative language, so we're saying it as a figure of speech. We're using it as an expression. So when we're using idioms, again, we don't translate it from word to word. So if I say it's a piece of cake, I don't mean I literally received a piece of cake. I'm using it as an expression to mean something completely different. So another example, if you went to the gym, you were working out, and you increased the weight on one of your repetitions, and someone, your trainer is asking you like, oh, like how is it? And you're saying it's a piece of cake, meaning this way it's so easy. I'm lifting it up. I'm not even struggling. It's so easy. I can do this all day. It's a piece of cake. Um, Another one, the bottom left, another idiom you can say under the weather. So this would mean feeling sick. So when you're not feeling great, it doesn't mean you have to be like sick out of your mind, your nose is leaking the headache, but sometimes, it can mean you're very sick, but even sometimes when you just those mornings where you wake up and you just don't feel great, maybe your back's hurting a bit, or you didn't get a good sleep, and so your head feels a bit heavy, your eyes are itching, you can't stop, rubbing your eyes, you're very tired, you're low on energy, even it's appropriate to use in this term. So you can mean that you're very, very sick, but it could also mean like a light sickness, like just you're not having the best day. You're not like in the best shape. Usually you're a 10 out of 10. Today you're like a 5 out of 10. So you can just say, oh, I'm under the weather. Um, so usually people say under the weather when they're expressing something on their behalf. So you wouldn't necessarily say this to someone else, like, oh, like you're under the weather. It's more so when you want to explain how you feel. So for example, if I'm having a conversation with someone and, someone's giving me, they're looking at me, they're saying like, oh, like, are you okay? Like, you don't seem too good. And you can just say like, oh, like, I'm feeling under the weather. Which just means, like I'm kind of feeling sick or I'm not feeling my best right now. Maybe tomorrow I just need to get, good sleep. I just need to drink more water. But right now I'm feeling under the weather. I'm feeling kind of sick. I'm not feeling the best. Another example of an idiom, the bottom right here is cost an arm and a leg. So again, we're not meaning literally that I have to trade someone my arm, my leg to pay for something. This means very expensive. So let's say you go to a restaurant and you went out with some friends, had your meal. It's time for the bill. The bill comes and you're like, oof, that was expensive. Like you didn't realize that all those appetizers, all those meals became very expensive. That drink here and there, it adds up, and you're looking at the bill and you're like, that is expensive. And so let's say someone is asking like, "Oh, how was that restaurant? I know you went yesterday. How was it?" You can say it cost an arm and a leg. And that would mean that you're telling the person like it was very expensive. Um, and so sometimes you can kind of see where the idioms come from. So, piece of cake doesn't really, you're trying to say like, oh, how does cake mean something very easy? But sometimes the idioms you see that they kind of make sense. So for this one to cost an arm and a leg, it's as if, you can give someone all your bank account, but it's not enough. You need to start selling pieces of your body. Okay, I will give you my arm, I will give you my leg. It's so expensive that not even money can buy it. You're gonna have to start selling your house, your car. Okay, take my left arm, take my right arm. So sometimes you can kind of see when idioms, okay, I see where they were, I see what they mean by that. I see where they were coming from. But again, it's not literal, it's just a figure of speech. So you would use this in a way to say that something is just very, very expensive. Like say you're shopping with a friend, you pick up a shirt, and your friend says like, "Oh, that's nice. How much is it?" And you turn the price tag, and you see so many numbers, and you're like, "Oof, this isn't a cost an arm and a leg. Like this is very expensive." And again, you could just say it's very expensive, but if you want to use, a fun, expressive way to explain yourself instead of saying like, oh, it's very, 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 very extremely expensive. You can just say like it costs an arm and a leg. Like you wouldn't even believe how expensive it is. It's too expensive. So that's idioms used in everyday language. Again, you can kind of see how you can use these in any setting, whether you're at a concert, you're at a park, you're at home with family, you're hanging out with friends. You can kind of use these in any situation. It's not really specific to one situation, one theme. You can use these in any situation. But again, I would refrain from using them in a more professional language. So for example, if you're speaking with your boss and he was saying like, "Oh, how was the workshop?" You wouldn't necessarily say like, "Oh, like it was a piece of cake." You would just say like, "Oh, it was very, it was very interesting, wasn't too difficult." Or for example, if you're speaking to your boss and you're not gonna say like, oh, like I'm feeling under the weather. You might just say like, oh, like I'm feeling a bit tired. So again, idioms would not necessarily be used in professional settings, especially because sometimes people don't even know the idiom. So for example, if you're a salesperson and someone's asking you a question like, oh, how much is it? And you're saying it costs an arm and a leg, maybe that person might not understand that you're trying to say that it's very expensive. And so just for like clarity in terms of like professional and out of respect, I would save idioms again just for more casual speech. Outside of professional settings, outside of like, work related business endeavors. And so now we're going to talk about idioms related to animals. And so this doesn't mean that it's used towards animals. I just broke it down that all these idioms reference an animal of some sort. But again, these can be used in you can also use this in everyday language as well. So, for example, the first one, it's raining cats and dogs. We already went over this. It just means that it's raining a lot. And so instead of saying that, again, it's raining a lot, a lot, a lot, you can just say it's raining cats and dogs. So maybe you're on, you just woke up, you don't really know what the weather's like, and you call your mom like, oh, like what's the weather like today? And she says, it's raining cats and dogs. Pack your umbrella, pack your rain boots. It's raining cats and dogs. It's like a flood out here. Or let's say you're on the phone with someone and you're stuck in traffic and someone asks like, oh, like why are you stuck in traffic? And you can say, it's raining cats and dogs. People can't even see in front of them. It's my windshield wipers are going crazy. They're dancing left and right. I cannot see in front of me. It's raining like cats and dogs. Um, Another expression right under it, hold your horses. So this one, sometimes they're a bit funny. I don't even know who creates these idioms, but sometimes they're just funny. So hold your horses means to be patient. So for example, if you're very hungry and it's time to make supper and something is in the oven. Let's say your friend put something in the oven, they put a pizza in the oven. Put the timer, time is passing and you keep asking your friend, like, is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? Like, oh, you're hungry, and you're hungry and you're really impatient. You want to eat now, and time seems to be passing so slow. And you keep asking them, like, is the pizza ready now? Is the pizza ready now? Your friend can turn to you and say, like, hold your horses, it's not done yet. So, your friend's telling you, like, be patient. Another word it could be patient, wait, like, hold on just a bit. So again, your friend could just be like, like, hold your horses, it's not done yet. Um, Another example, if for example, like you're getting ready to go out and you're getting dressed and your friend is already like out the door, she's putting on her boots, but you're still in pajamas. You're nowhere close to being ready. So you can tell your friend like, like, hold your horses, like, I'm not dressed yet. Like, wait a bit, like, hold on, wait a bit. I'm not ready. Like, let me hold your horses, let me get changed first, and then we can leave. So again, you can use this in any situation. It's really, I'm pretty sure you guys can already think of different examples in which you're telling someone like, okay, yes, this person rushes a lot, or this person is pretty impatient, and you can kind of see where you can fill in the gaps to be like, okay, like, hold your horses. Another example is let the cat out of the bag. And so this for me, this means to reveal a secret. Sorry. So let the cat out of the bag, it means to reveal a secret. So for example, um, let's say a woman is pregnant and she's holding the secret. And a couple weeks goes by, no one knows that she's pregnant still, or no one knows that she's pregnant yet. And so maybe after 2 months, maybe only some people will know. Let's say, like, she told her mom, she told her dad, but everyone else, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the friends, she didn't say it yet. So for example, if they're all having dinner and that's when she decides to say it, oh, I'm pregnant. The mom can say, like, oh, like, you let the cat out of the bag. You finally revealed your secret. And so this is often used when you're holding a big secret. And so let's say if I'm having, to give you a contradicting example, for example, if I'm picking up McDonald's for my sister and I don't tell her, but then once I get home I show her that I have McDonald's. I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh, I let the cat out of the bag. It wasn't a big secret. I was surprising her with McDonald's and she didn't know it, but now she knows it. When you want to use the expression let the cat out of the bag, it usually means a really big, juicy, big secret. You know, it's often a secret that you were waiting a long time to share. Like, it's been months. You didn't tell anyone that you got that job promotion. It's been 2 months, and then you finally let the cat out of the bag. You finally revealed the secret. So again, the secret is usually one that you've waited a long time to say, or it's a big secret. For example, if someone's sharing news that they're pregnant, that they got a job promotion, that they're they're moving to another country. Like, these are big secrets. These are secrets that you often wait a while before you're telling someone. And so that's when you would say, like, oh, you let the cat out of the bag. You finally told people that really big secret that you were holding on for so, so long. And so another example is to kill two birds with one stone. And so this one means to accomplish two things either at the same time or to accomplish two things with one action. So, for example, this can be, for example, if you had to clean your house and you had to, actually, no, that's not a good example. To kill two birds with one stone, this can be, for example, you want to go drive to your friend's house and she lives 10 minutes away, but you also need to call your mom to remind her, like, oh, I'm coming over for supper tomorrow. So the two birds with one stone, this can be that on your drive to see your friend, you're also calling your mom on speaker to say, like, oh, hey, by the way, tomorrow I'm coming home for supper. So you kind of did two things off your to-do list. So you drove to your friend's house, And you also called your mom to tell her that you were coming home for supper while doing one thing. So like while you were driving, you called her. So in comparison, if it was two actions, you would drive to your friend's house. Once you arrive at your friend's house, you make the call to your mom. However, killing two birds with one stone, you're doing both at the same time. You're accomplishing two things, you're getting two things off your to-do list at the same time. So while you're driving, you got some time to kill. Okay, like let me call my mom to tell her. Or for example, if I'm running late for work, I might grab a banana and start driving to work. And then I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone. I'm driving to work as I'm eating my banana. The two actions would be I was home, I ate my banana. Once I finished my banana, I drove to work. However, to kill two birds with one stone, as I'm driving, I will eat it. So I'm driving and having my breakfast at the same time. And so with this one action, I'm able to do two things off my to-do list. Um, and so it's even sometimes when people are making plans, sometimes they also use this as an expression. Oh, hey, why don't we do this, and then we can kill two birds with one stone. So, for example, if you're having a party and you need to run some errands. So, for example, you can say, okay, we need chips, we need salsa, we need drinks, and we need cups, for example. So you can go, for example, to a grocery store and get the food. Then you can kind of go towards like the to another store to get, for example, like cups and napkins and all that. But there are certain stores that have all of that. They have the food, they have, the utensils, forks, spoons, knives. They also have cups, napkins, and they all have that in the same store, but in different aisles. So you can say, instead of going to three different stores, let's go to this one store and let's get the cups and the food. So you're killing two birds with one stone, with one stone. Instead of going to two different stores, one store to get cups, one store to get food, yeah, one store to get food. You go to this one store and you're killing two birds with one stone. So I go here and I get both things off my to-do list. My cups and my food. I killed two birds with one stone. So idioms related to body parts. So again, in these idioms, we often reference like a body part, which is why I classified them as into the body parts. So for example, break a leg. This means you're just wishing someone good luck. So if your friend has, they're performing at a concert, they're performing at a recital, they have a dance recital, and people are watching, you can tell someone, oh, break a leg. And this just simply means like good luck. Someone's writing a really important exam, you call them up right before the exam. By the way, break a leg on the exam, meaning good luck on the exam. So that one's pretty straightforward. Um, Another example is to keep an eye on something. So this means to watch or to supervise. So when you want to keep an eye on something. So for example, maybe you're babysitting, you have younger cousins and they're 2 years old, they're 3 years old. You have to keep an eye on them. You have to watch them. You have to supervise them. You can't just leave the house. You have to stay and kind of like, look after them, watch them a bit, supervise them a bit. But this could also mean for things besides people. So, for example, um, let's say you bought a new plant. Someone can say like, oh, you have to keep an eye on it because it needs water a lot of times. Some plants you water them once a month, but this one here you have to keep an eye on it. Every couple of days you need to water the plant. So you have to watch, you have to supervise. It gets dry very quickly, so you have to keep an eye on it. You have to water it a lot, a lot. So sometimes this can mean to keep an eye on people, but you could also keep an eye on objects or items. So for example, if you buy a car, but people say, oh, that brand of a car, you have to keep an eye on it. A lot of problems. Makes a lot of parts of the car break down. You have to keep an eye on it, make sure that, you always check your engine, you go to the garage often. You have to supervise, you have to watch your car. It doesn't always mean that, you're watching something. It could also mean as again a figure of speech, keep it in mind. Sometimes you're saying like you have to watch or supervise, but like Sometimes it also means in your head. So for example, for the car, to keep an eye on your car, you're not going outside and literally watching your car, but it's more so in the mind. Keep it in your mind, supervise it, make sure you check it a lot. So again, keep an eye, watch something, supervise something, keep something in your mind. You're always, okay, it's true. It's been a while. I should check my car, make sure the pieces are still good, make sure I bring it to the garage, make sure the engine is still sharp, my gas tank is full, etc., etc. Another example is to get cold feet. So this means when you're feeling nervous. Um, so for example, if you are singing you're singing in front of an audience, you might get cold feet to mean you're feeling very nervous. You're starting to get anxious, you're feeling nervous, you might even start sweating, you'll see it in the face, the armpits, you start sweating. So this would mean that, oh, I'm getting cold feet. Like I'm getting nervous. And sometimes when people want to perform, so for example, if you're singing at a concert, if you have a dance party, and not a dance party, but like you're dancing in front of people, you're singing in front of people, or maybe it's someone's wedding and you're gonna sing them a song, or even if it's at someone's wedding and you have to give a speech, you can say, like, oh, like I'm getting cold feet, I'm nervous, I almost want to back out. I almost don't want to do it anymore. So even let's say if someone said like, "Oh, you want to give a speech at this person's wedding," you might say, "Fine, you feel good about it. Yes, yes, I'll give a speech." You prepare, you're feeling good. But then the day of, you're walking towards that stage, someone's giving you the microphone, and all of a sudden you're getting cold feet. You start to panic, you start to feel nervous. You're like, I don't know about this. Sometimes people have to encourage you, like, yes, yes, you can do it. But oftentimes this would mean that you're getting cold feet. You're getting nervous. You're not sure, should I do it in the end? I don't know. I'm starting to doubt myself. Maybe I won't do it. Maybe I won't sing in front of them. So, you get nervous and you kind of want to pull back. Maybe I won't go. Maybe I won't do it anymore. So that would mean getting cold feet. And you can refer to yourself when you're nervous about something. Oh, I don't know if I'll give the presentation. I'm getting cold feet. But you could also mean it towards someone else. Oh, in the end, she didn't go up on stage to dance for the audience. She got cold feet, meaning she was so nervous that in the end, she wasn't able to do it. So sometimes you get cold feet, but you're still able to complete it. So for example, like, oh, perhaps I got cold feet about giving this presentation. I was a bit nervous, but in the end, I was able to go through with it. I was able to do it. You can say I got cold feet, but you could also use it in situations where the person didn't complete the action. So, for example, if I wanted to give this presentation, I got cold feet, and in the end, I told Diana like I can't do the presentation anymore, and I canceled. It's still appropriate to say I got cold feet, whether I did the presentation or not, because I was feeling nervous and I started to doubt myself, I was getting cold feet. So you can use it in both cases. If someone does it or someone doesn't, at the end of the line, if they were feeling nervous and they were starting to doubt it, you can say that they got cold feet, I got cold feet, etc. Another example of an idiom related to body parts is to get something off your chest. So this means to share a secret and you feel relieved. So it's also again referring to a secret that's very, very big. It's a secret that's really important. It's really big news. So in the example where I got McDonald's for my sister and she didn't know it and then I surprised her, I didn't get something off my chest. I wasn't holding it deep down, this big heavy secret that I was gonna buy her McDonald's. And I finally told her and I feel relieved. It wouldn't necessarily work that way. It's not really a big secret. A big secret would mean, or you would use this idiom, for example, if you're holding a really big secret. So for example, your colleague got promoted to CEO. That is big news. But she said, like, shh, don't tell anyone yet. No one knows right now. They're only gonna know, next month. So you're really, you're excited, you want to like celebrate, you want to be happy for this person, but you can't say the secret yet. So you're holding it, and then, sometimes you might even get a bit nervous because you're scared. What if I accidentally spill the secret? But you have to remind yourself, like, no, shh, keep it to yourself. Wait, wait, wait. And then finally, when the person says, okay, it's time, you can tell people. And then you say the news, okay, so and so got promoted to CEO. You feel kind of like relieved, like, phew, everyone knows about it. I don't have to worry about, spilling the secret too soon. Like now everyone knows. I feel good. I feel good about it. But this could also refer to like a secret that's not really good, that's not a pleasant secret. So for example, if you stole something. You went to someone's house, you saw this mug, and you said, "Oof, this is a nice mug." And so you stole the mug. The person, your friend doesn't know you stole the mug. You put it in your bag, you went home, but then, you start to feel guilty. Ah, I feel bad. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. And you try and tell yourself, like, oh, like, it's okay. It's just a mug. Don't worry about it. You'll forget about it. But then after like, a week passes, 2 weeks passes, and you still feel guilty. What if she finds out? What if she gets mad? So you say, you know what? I need to get something off my chest. So you tell your friend, like, hey, I stole this mug. I'm really sorry. Here's your mug back. I'm giving your mug back. And so you share a secret, you tell her something, and you feel relief, like, oof, I got that off my chest. Like I told her, and I don't have to hide anymore. I don't have to feel guilty. Like I feel good about it. It's off my chest. I feel relief. So again, it could be a good secret or it could be a bad secret, but it's usually a really heavy secret that you have to keep inside and you're like, I need to get it out. I need to tell someone, I need to reveal the secret. And then whew, once that's done, I feel like $1,000,000. I feel great. And so lastly, I have idioms related to color. And so an example is out of the blue. So this means when something happened unexpectedly. So for example, you can be going on a walk and then all of a sudden, like a bird poops on your shoulder. Out of the blue, the bird poops on your shoulder. You weren't expecting a bird to poo on your shoulder. You're not walking around to say like any minute now, the bird will poo on my shoulder. You're not expecting it to happen. Or, for example, you've been working with your coworker, you've been working together for 4 years, and then, one day at lunch, your coworker says, "Oh, by the way, I quit," and it's so unexpected. You're like, "Wait, what?" And so that would be out of the blue. Like you weren't expecting her to quit. You worked together for years. She liked her job. She was good at her job. You didn't know that she wanted to quit. And then out of the blue, she says, I quit. And it's so unexpected. It takes you by surprise. So that, it would just mean like out of the blue. It's unexpected. You weren't thinking about it. You didn't even think it was possible. Sometimes people share things that you didn't even think were possible and they just say it and out of the blue you're like, oh wow, like for real, actually. Um, so another example is a white lie. So this means a harmless lie. So this would mean when you lie to someone, but you're lying to them because it would protect their feelings. And so you're not trying to lie to someone in a mean way. You're not trying on purpose to hide the truth for someone, but sometimes you say a lie because you want to make the person happy. And by you lying, it's not really a big deal. It doesn't affect them. So for example, let's say your mom spent all day cooking a meal and she goes, I worked so hard on this. I'm so proud of it. It took me 5 hours to make this meal. She gives it to you to try. You try it and it doesn't taste good. Or she put way too much salt. And so, your mom is waiting, and how does it taste? So sometimes you would say a white lie and you can say, it's amazing. You did a great job. So deep down, you know that like, it doesn't taste that good, or you put a little too much salt, or it's missing something. But your mom worked so hard on it, and so you lie and you just say Yes, it's delicious. It's so good. Even though deep down it's a bit of a lie. But again, you're saying this lie not on purpose in a mean way. But you're trying to protect, your mom's feelings. You want to make her happy. She put so much time into it. She put so much effort into it. She was so proud of it. She wanted to share it. She was excited. And if you say like it's really horrible, then she would just feel horrible, like, oh, I just spent all day making it and it's not good. She would feel really bad. And then you might even feel bad that it's like, oof, I made her feel bad. She was really proud. She put so much time and effort, and here I go saying it's bad, and now her day is ruined. So sometimes you want to say a white lie to kind of protect people, protect their feelings and emotions. And at the end of the day, you're lying. And again, if I told my mom that it's good, but it wasn't, no one's in danger. No one's dying from the lack of salt. No one's in danger because we're missing a certain spice. Like there's no danger to lying. I just lied and said, yes, it's very good because at the end of the day, I'd rather make her feel good. I'd rather make her feel happy that, okay, yes, I did all this work and it paid off. Like she liked it, she loved it, she said it was good. I feel happy. You feel happy that you made the other person happy. So again, a white lie is like a harmless lie. It's not the end of the world. And at the end of the day, you're doing it for a good reason. You're doing it to make the person happy. You're doing it to make the person less stressed, less nervous. You're just overall trying to make the other person feel happy with this white lie that again is a harmless lie. It's not a dangerous lie. No one's in danger if you say it. You're not purposely trying to hurt the person's feelings. You genuinely want them to be happy. So you just say, you know what? This is the best soup I ever tasted. This is so good. Um, so another example is black sheep. So this means the odd one in a group. And so this picture in the slide gives a really good example. So imagine in a field, it's all yellow tulips, and then there is one singular red tulip. So this would mean that it's the black sheep. It's the odd one in a group. And so again, referring back to what we spoke about earlier on, that sometimes you can kind of see where the idioms are coming from. So as we know, sheeps are white. So if you go to a farm and there's 50 sheep, if there was a black sheep, it would stick out. It would it would be the odd one. There's 49 white sheep and one black sheep. It would stick out. It would catch your eye. It would, it's the odd one in a group. And so you can use this as an example of, for example, if you go to a class and everyone is 20 years old, but you're 60 years old, you might feel like the black sheep. You might feel like the odd one. Everyone else is in their 20s, 21 years old, 22, 23, and you're 61 years old. You might feel like you're the odd one, like everyone else is the same age and you stand out. And so sometimes you can use this to say that you stand out, sometimes in a bad way, like maybe someone might not feel good by the fact that they feel like they stand out. They want to blend in, but oh my God, I'm so much older than everyone. So sometimes you can say it in a way that I don't really feel good because I stand out. But then other times you can use it in a way to say that you feel good that you stand out. If you're doing a test and everyone got really, really low grades. They got 30, 40%. They failed, they didn't do good. But then you're like the black sheep. You got almost 100%, You're the odd one, but in a good way because everyone else struggled and didn't do good, but like you really studied and you really did good. And so you're kind of like the odd one. You stand out, but in a good way, like you were really smart, you got really good, your effort paid off. So you can kind of use this to explain odd one and either a less, like not the best situation, but you could also use it to explain it in a really good situation that, I stood out in a good way, out of all these applications, I stood out, like I had really good skills and things to bring to the table. And then lastly, the last idiom for today, gray hairs. So this means when you stress someone out. And so, for example, if, a mom has, she just gave birth, she has two children, and these children are bouncing all over the walls and they're breaking things, they're making a mess, they're always crying, they're always this, they're always that, they keep pooping, they keep wanting milk, and you can say that it's giving me gray hairs. It's stressing me out to the point that I feel like I aged 50 years and all of a sudden I'm getting gray hairs. Sorry. So again, you would use this in the sense of I got gray hairs, like I'm stressed out. Or for example, if you have a big deadline and you're really nervous, it's a big deadline for work, you have to write a big important paper, you can say it's giving me gray hairs, it's stressing me out. So again, this one's pretty straightforward. Gray hairs, you're stressing it out. It's giving me gray hairs, it's stressing me out. And so thank you for listening to the presentation. I hope it was informative and gave you some things to work on. As again, this is not interactive and it's not like the question and answer period. You can leave questions in the comments. And if possible, I'll get back to you. But again, thank you for taking the time to listen to me and explore tenses and idioms with me.